And we're back with Bedtime Stories, Grownup Edition, Season 3, Feast or Famine, Part 1. In the introduction, we found out that Michelle Amoura Thomas agreed to Q's terms in relation to their shared custody of their son, Michael Donovan St. James. But when she failed to bring him to Bible study on Wednesday, as they agreed, he went to her house to find out where his son was. Amoura used that opportunity to attempt to seduce Q with her body and a glass of bourbon. Unfortunately for her, Angela showed up and tore her behind every which way but loose. When she was finished, she headed home. Q headed next door to pick up his son from the neighbors, and when he came outside, Amoura was waiting in her car with a firearm and nefarious intentions. He pulled off with his son, and before she could follow him to Angela's house, her car went up in flames. Angela Lorraine Spencer Washington, also known as Angie, is speeding down the road in her Lexus truck, mad as hell. She is aggravated, she is frustrated, offended, repentant, and embarrassed. While she had good reason to snatch Amoura bald and knock her head between the washer and the dryer, she knew full well, as a life coach, a women's ministry leader, an educated woman, a mother, she had absolutely no business showing up to Amoura's house and putting hands and feet on that woman. Angie was raised in the genteel South. She was a debutante, for Christ's sakes. A member of an illustrious, community-conscious, action-oriented sorority. In the face of her luxury, skincare, and hair care brand, Vibrantly You. She's a millionaire in her own right and a multi-millionaire by inheritance. The last thing that Angie needs is to end up in jail or sued for assault. Angie thought to herself while driving, Lord, please let Q be able to talk Amoura out of pressing charges or filing a civil suit against me. How is Michael gonna feel when he finds out that I attacked his mother? How am I going to explain to CT why his women's ministry leader got into a brawl with her man's naked ex-fiance? How embarrassing. At the traffic light, Angie hit the phone icon on the display and called up her best friend, Regina. Regina Johnson, affectionately known as Gigi, is the wife of Angela's other best friend, LJ, Lawrence Johnson Jr. Together, the couple have 2 children, L3, Lawrence III, and Angelina, affectionately known as Lena. The 3 friends have known each other for over 30 years. They even went to the same college. The couple, Regina and LJ, have been married for over 10 years. When Regina answered the phone, Angela said, Best friend, you are never gonna believe this. The rest of the ride home, Angela told Regina all about how she put the smackdown on Amoura and how Q sent her home. When she pulled up outside of the estate, there were 2 police cars waiting outside. Not only are Angela and Regina best friends, but Regina is also Angela's business attorney. So when Angela told Regina that the police were outside, Regina said, I'll be right out there, best friend. Stay in the car. When officers tell Angela that they need her to come with them, Regina says, What is this about? I am her attorney. The officers inform Regina that there was an incident at Amoura's house and that they need to speak with Angela. Regina tells Angela not to say a word until her criminal attorney arrives, and Angela heads down to the station. Immediately after Angie leaves, Regina calls a frat brother of theirs who's a criminal attorney in the area and sends him to the station. Then she calls LJ, her husband. LJ's been working on a case involving his friend circle, Q's ex, Amoura, and their previous captain at the police department in North Carolina, Captain Arrington. So he's currently at the FBI field office. He tells Regina, call Q. When Regina calls Q, she doesn't get an answer. Shortly thereafter, another police car pulls up. When the officer gets out of the car, he says, Ma'am, is this the residence of Quincy Anders St. James IV? Regina says, It is. The officer says, I need to speak with his wife or next of kin. Regina says, I'm his sister. What's going on? The officer says, there's been an accident and he and his son are in the hospital. I need you to come with me. Now, if you're new here, you need to go back and watch the previous seasons because it's way too much to recap. But the short version of it is that Quincy, just recently found out that he has an 8-year-old child with his ex-fiance, Amoura, and her car just blew up with her in it. Unfortunately, he and the son, Michael, were in his car, and they weren't even down the street when the explosion happened. As with most car explosions, there was residual damage. Regina runs to the mother-in-law suite of Angela's estate, grabs her purse while calling LJ back to let him know what's going on, runs out and jumps in the police car with the officer headed to the hospital. After calling her husband, she calls the Queen Mother. Miss Bella St. James is Q, Donovan, and Anya's mother. They call her the Queen Mother because she don't play no games. Immediately afterwards, Regina calls Miss Brenda. Miss Brenda is Angela's mother-in-law. She's staying with Angela at the estate to help her take care of her 2 children. Melissa, the daughter of Angela's dead sister and dead husband. That's a whole nother story from a whole nother series. Melissa's almost 8 years old, and Angela's been raising her for the past 2.5 years. And her son with her deceased husband, Angel, who's only 2.5. Both Angela and Miss Brenda are widows, so they've been kind of doing the Naomi and Ruth thing. Miss Brenda says, "What's going on, baby?" Regina says, "Miss Brenda, I have no idea. But Angela just went down to the police station, and the officer just showed up at the house saying that Q and Michael were in some kind of accident. I'll let you know when I know more. But I just wanted to let you know to go and get my mom and Miss Bernie, and y'all start praying." Regina, LJ, and their children are staying in Angela's guest house on her property. Regina's mother, Miss Joyce, is back and forth between North Carolina and Dallas, helping them with the children. And Miss Bernie is the chief of operations at Angela's business, and she recently moved into the guest house on the property after being promoted from warehouse manager back in Denver. Q's been staying between his parents' house in Fort Worth and Angela's basement apartment in the main house. He's got a huge house being built in Dallas, and it's almost done. But since he's been sharing custody of his son Michael with Amoura, who lives in Dallas, he stays at Angela's when he has his son. So the estate is full of family and friends who've become family. At the hospital, Regina runs up to the nurse's station and says, "Excuse me, my name is Regina Johnson. I received information that my brother and my nephew are here. There's been some kind of accident. My brother's name is Quincy St. James, and my nephew is Michael St. James." Nurse directs Regina to a seating area, and shortly thereafter, LJ, the Queen Mother, and Pops Andy, Q's father, his brother Donovan, and his girlfriend Veronica show up at the hospital. After about 30 minutes, another nurse came out and said that 2 people could go in and see Q. Regina and the Queen Mother headed back. When they got back there, Q said, "Where's Angie?" Regina said, "That's a whole nother story. What happened?" Q asked, "Have you talked to Angie?" Regina said, "Oh yeah, I talked to her." Well, shortly after she left, and I got Michael from Amoura's next door neighbor. We got in the car and drove off, and almost immediately, I heard a huge explosion, and then I was knocked out. I lost control of the car, and we crashed into a pole. The Queen Mother said, "Oh my, is my grandson okay? Why is he?" The Queen Mother and Pops Andy are natives of Trinidad and Tobago. Every now and again, their patois is pretty thick. You said, "The doctor just left out of here right before you all came in. He's got some cuts and bruises, and they're concerned that he has a concussion, and right now, he's getting an MRI, just to make sure that there isn't any internal bleeding." Regina said, "Well, where's the slut bucket?" Q said, "I have no idea." Regina said, "What? Does she know that you and Michael were in an accident?" Q said, "I have no idea." At that moment, Regina's phone rings. She answers and says, "Hey, Ron, what's going on?" Ron is the frat brother attorney that she sent down to the station to meet Angela. Ron says, "Regina, so I got Angela with me, and I'm getting ready to take her home. I just wanted to call and give you an update." Regina said, "Can you bring her to Methodist Hospital instead? There's been an accident." Ron says, "Who's at the hospital?" Regina said, "Her man and his son." After going 2.5 years without any contact with one another, while they both worked on healing and being ready, Angela and Q have just started a brand new relationship. Unfortunately, they're off to a rocky start. Ron says, "Oh, okay. Well, we'll be there shortly. I'll tell you what's going on when I get there." Q looks at Regina and says, "What's up, Gigi?" Regina says, "Well, I don't know what's going on, but when Angela pulled up to the house, 2 police cars were outside the estate waiting for her. And they said that they needed her to come with them. So I called Ron." You remember Ron. Q said, "Yeah, Frat from back at Central." Regina said, "Yeah, I told Angela, say nothing until he gets there. And they've been there for like an hour and a half maybe. And he said he's on his way with her. So I guess we'll find out when she gets here." Q looks at Regina and says, "Can you send LJ in? I'm sure he knows something." Regina and LJ switch places. And when LJ comes in the room, he looks at Q and says, "Amoura's dead. Somebody placed an ignition-activated bomb on her car, and the police think it was Angela." Q said, "It won't be difficult to prove that it wasn't." LJ said, "It'll be a lot easier to prove that she didn't do it if we can figure out who did."